Welcome back to Blake's Craft Beer Podcast. This is not a Monday. If you're hearing this, you're probably confused. Oh, this is a Thursday. Yes, it is a Thursday. I've been doing these little Thirsty Thursday things, and there's this big event coming to Cincinnati then the week of when this comes out. And I can think of someone better to help talk to me and whatever craziness of craft beer is going on right now than my buddy Gnarly Gnome. Which he's been on an episode twice now.
Definitely at least twice.
Yes. More in the future, I can tell.
Twice. So, I did a Thirsty Thursday episode of when you were doing the other thing.
Yeah. So you
was on that
3 times now.
Was that it? I don't know.
I know.
I can't keep track of things.
Put together now, Man, you've been doing this for over 10 years. I can only imagine where your brain goes when you've done stuff like this. And
it is, as far as podcasting, it's almost 10 years. It'll be 10 years on Patty's Day was the release of the very first episode of Cincy Brewcast. So almost 10 years.
Does that blow your mind that you're getting that? I've been doing this 10 years? Or?
Yes and no. At a certain point, it feels like I've been doing it forever. It doesn't make sense to have a life where I'm not making podcasts. So it's not shocking.
I remember you told me to be careful when I do this because now you're starting to create rabbit holes of other possibilities, and I'm already starting to feel now I'm not even.
You all of a sudden start wanting to do 100 different podcasts about every topic you're interested in.
I gotta remember. Let's get this one put squared away and really get comfortable with it before going down and
It's never comfortable. There's always something that goes wrong, always something that changes, always something that evolves and keeps you on your toes.
Yeah.
In my experience. Right. Maybe it's not true for everybody.
I'm still new and naive. I don't know anything yet.
It's not a bad thing.
So, I was thinking today, this show is called Bock Fest, but just looking at Cincinnati beer festivals out there, how lucky Cincinnati is to have some. I mean, you got the 3 big ones, Missing Link, Bock, and Oktoberfest, but there's also some other mini ones out there.
Yeah, I mean, you get like Chris Kindle markets that happens, every fall leading into winter, and I think that's a very kind of. Not that it's a Cincinnati thing; it's a very German thing, but that kind of translates into Cincinnati. But there's other little festivals that happen around too that kind of not that they're beer festivals, but that have a really fun Cincinnati personality to them. Get a Fest or whatever it may be. There's just lots of great festivals in the city.
Yeah,
Bock Fest is the best though.
Yeah, I like it. This will be my 3rd year going to the Bock Fest, and the first 2 was at the park, and now it's going to be I take this back. This will be 4 years. My years get mixed up. Must be the Bock and telling me where I've been at. But talk to me a little bit. Let's first talk about Bock beer itself. What is a Bock beer?
So the Bock is a group of styles. So the traditional Bock is a lager, but it's a big, malty, slightly boozy lager. It's and my numbers are not going to be dead onto this. I'm not great with BJCP styles or any of that kind of crap, but I'm going to say 6 to 7-ish% is pretty normal for a traditional Bock, and that's at one time what we saw the most of was most of those. But there are other Bock styles that have splintered off of that over. Centuries of brewing. Doppelbock is one that most people will probably be familiar with. That's even bigger, boozier, huge, malty, sweet beers. They will they'll work you over a little bit if you have too many of them. Then there's a Hellas Bock, which has become very popular as of late. It's a little bit lighter, so you can get them, 5% ish, so that you can drink more of those. And then, like the one you're drinking today, there's also a Weissenbock, which is a German wheat Bock style, so a little different kind of malt character to it. It's got some wheat and some German. I'm assuming they're using some kind of a German wheat beer yeast in there.
Yeah,
I'm assuming.
Which we are at a brewery. We're at Greenworks, and is this Westchester?
It's Westchester,
okay.
yeah.
Because I also consider this like Little Mason-y ish, but it's always fun to come here. This is actually my first show ever at Greenworks.
It's a fun place.
Yeah.
It's fun watching how they've kind of grown over the years. I don't know if you were here before the renovations, but kind of where the bar ends there was a wall that came across, so that just from there over was the tap room.
Okay.
And then they did this big expansion, added Mama Bear's Mac in here, which it's amazing. And then the event spaces and just more tap room space. It's a cool tap room.
Mm-hmm. When you were talking about last night on where your kids... No, it was on your show. You were talking where your kids like to go. Is this like one of them because it has mac and cheese?
Yes and no. My kids do not like the mac and cheese because it's too fancy. They
gotcha.
Are very specific about Kraft macaroni and cheese. That is the only mac and cheese that they live for. However, you can get chicken.
Yeah.
They do like that. It's not just mac and cheese. There are other things on the menu.
It's just just a neat, and it's right off the interstate too, which has to make it nice.
Location.
You know, and this area itself is continuing to grow.
Yeah.
So
you're close to a lot of stuff around here, but you're also not sitting right in the middle of it. It's still kind of tucked away in its own little corner here in this little industrial park. And I like it.
Yeah. Now getting back to Bock though, so what makes Bock Festival? So when did that start?
So, not to burst any bubbles, but it's not like a festival that's been happening in Cincinnati since the dawn of, civilization here. It started in the 70s, maybe even 80s. I don't remember without looking at notes, I don't know what the date was. This is like the 30-something year, so it's probably 80s when it started. Mm-hmm. But at the time, Hudipole Shandling, so owned by Sinbev now, they decided they were going to release this Bock beer, this craft beer when there wasn't a lot of craft beer, this really great traditional Bock. And to do it, they wanted to find some way to celebrate the release of it. So they threw this event, and they delivered the beer to Arnold's in a carriage or a wagon or something, and did this whole event around it, and people showed up and they drank a bunch of Bock, and it was fun. And then the next year they just decided to do it again, and the next year they decided to do it again, and then it started to become a thing. And all of the, I say all very loosely, the businesses there in OTR at the time, they were all part of it because there was not a lot of things happening in OTR, and they wanted to bring some attention to the area. So everybody just got together and just threw this festival every year where they celebrated the release of this beer and the celebration of the neighborhood itself. As time went on, Hudipole Shandling went away. And Barrel House at the time was a little craft brewery. They picked up the flag and kind of kept rolling with it and kept Bock Fest going. And eventually they went away, and somebody else picked it up, and it just kind of kept going. Every year it always kept happening, no matter what was going on in OTR, no matter what was going on in the city. People just kept celebrating Bock Fest. Mm-hmm. And it grew and it evolved and it got bigger and turned into an actual festival, and really kind of exploded in the early 2000s and kind of took on its modern personality, which is kind of like the way I've heard it described is if you took Oktoberfest and Mardi Gras and you smashed them together. That's kind of what the personality of Bock Fest is now, just because it's time of year, Mardi Gras, it works.
Because I understand the origins of Bock actually came from monks, right?
Yes, yeah. So in theory, the monks would brew this beer as a bigger, maltier beer that they could drink during Lent, and it would give them more nutrients while they were fasting from actually eating. They could just drink a bunch of Bock beer and it would sustain them. There's a lot of fun stories about the origin of the name and all of that, but
and me being a Catholic, it just seems perfect. And it's like, okay, perfect.
Yeah, I mean, if you really want the most nutritional value, it's probably coming from a Doppelbock. But I don't know how many Doppelbocks you can drink if you are currently fasting too. It's got bad news written all over it.
So when did Moorline pick up the Bock Fest and turn it into, because they have the rights for it now, right?
Sort of. So Bock Fest is a trademark of Sinbev.
Okay.
However, they obviously share it with everybody. That would have been around the time that Greg Hardman bought all the brands and kind of decided that he wanted to bring brewing back to Cincinnati, which at that time, the only breweries that existed in Cincinnati were kind of the big guys. You had, Boston Beer, and you had Miller up in Trenton. That was kind of all that was going on. Everything else had closed. At that time, that's when he kind of picked it up and kind of kept rolling with it. And eventually, when the new space opened up in OTR, that became Bockfest Hall for a bunch of years. And it's a constant evolution. That's what makes it so kind of special and unique and gives it its personality. That what it is this year is probably not what it's going to look like in 5 years, and it's probably definitely not what it's going to look like in 10 years. Right. It's going to always keep changing.
I can imagine when Moreline came back into city, it had to be like a boost to the city. Yeah. Like you have a local brand that's willing to
anybody who was like a craft beer fan at that time was just, as soon as you started hearing the idea that Moreline, not only was Moreline going to come back and start making the beer here again, when he started outlining those plans of a production facility and then this idea of the lager house, you think about what was going on at the time. Like that was really, really, really exciting stuff for craft beer fans. We had Rock Bottom by then had opened up, so we had a brew pub, but it was a Rock Bottom. Like it wasn't
ours.
Yeah, it was different. And then, you had other small places starting to open up with Rivertown and Listerman and places like that were a Great Crescent. They were opening up, doing their thing. But to do it in a big way and to do it with brands that had been all but forgotten about, and to kind of draw attention back to those, it's something that I definitely resonate with a lot.
Does anyone ever think about if Prohibition ever happened, where Moreline could, or would they always fallen off like they did? Yeah,
it's easy to blame Prohibition, and Prohibition definitely did not do good things to beer in this city, but the writing was hardy. It wasn't Prohibition that killed brewing in the city. It was the growth of light American lager and the mass industrialization of that and consolidation of regional breweries. It would have happened regardless.
Okay. So it was never going to be like Anheuser-Busch that stood up.
I mean, some of them could have been that. Hudepohl Shaneling maybe could have been like Anheuser-Busch if they had evolved in the same way that Anheuser-Busch did at that time. But would we have loved it the same way? I don't know.
You look at some of these other bigger breweries that some would say they've outgrown their stuff, and they're not craft anymore. Which I hate that.
The easy one to look at is Yuengling. Yuengling stuck around. Yuengling survived Prohibition and survived that post-Prohibition industrialization of beer. And if I lived in Pottsville, Pennsylvania, I would probably have a very strong allegiance to Yuengling for who they are. But as it is, they're just another beer brand for me. Pabst as a brand. I don't have any kind of allegiance to that.
No.
I don't know. It's hard to guess what things would look like, I guess.
You were talking about the light lager. Since they're coming back, is that a concern, or are you happy to see light lagers coming?
Both, maybe. If people, and I'll include myself in there because sometimes I drink a light lager. If people are going to drink one, I would much rather it be one that is brewed locally than one that is from some big national conglomerate or multi-international conglomerate of brewing whatever. I'd much rather be something that's brewed down the street, that you can feel a little better about. But at the same time, I wish the style itself was not as big as it is. I wish more people wanted something that was more flavorful and had some more character to it.
Right.
But whatever. I mean, you can't judge people for what they drink.
Because one of my favorite things you said was when you were at the UC game and everyone was drinking Cincy Light, they weren't really touching anything else.
Yeah, I would. If people are going to drink light lager, I would much rather it be a local brand, personally.
It's so. Where are some other beers are you liking in 2025 you see coming big again, or is there some stuff in beer that like variants of stuff?
Yeah, that's unfortunately, I think 2025 is not going to be a year for beer. I think we're going to see a lot of other stuff and a lot of people toying with other stuff, be it weed water or canned cocktails, things like that. Right now, that's what most people want to drink. Mm-hmm. You'll see a lot of some of the beer styles that you'll see are things to mimic that, even, trying to meet people at that spot, which is fine. Beer will eventually kind of come back, and it's not going to go anywhere. No. But trend-wise, it's that other stuff, I think, still for a while.
Right, because the last couple episodes on Cincy Brewcast, they've all been new breweries, so that has to be like a shot of excitement. Like, people are still trying to come in and start stuff. And
I mean, taking the last 2 episodes specifically, we had Mellotone, which took over the space of Taft's that closed. So it was a new brewery opening up in the space of an old brewery. And then you have Gilligan's, which is a second tap room from an already existing brand. Like, it still is different than it was before. Not that new breweries aren't opening, because they are, and there's more coming. But most of what we're seeing is expansion of current places or somebody replacing somebody else that closed.
Which I think I've talked about. I would rather see a new brewery go in the old brewery and then turn into something that's not going to be anything. But
yeah, well, and it's hard. It would be hard to open something like this here at Grainworks today. You move into an industrial space, a warehouse, and open up a tap room that people want to come drink at. That's a tall order today. It might not have been. I mean, when did this open? 7 years ago, maybe, somewhere around there.
I think so.
Again, I'd have to look at my notes.
I know.
But, at that time, things looked different, and you could get away with things that now you wouldn't be able to get away with. This has evolved at the right pace, and it doesn't feel like a warehouse. Right.
Because early, like, even 5 or 6 years ago, you used to go drive by a abandoned warehouse, and you're thinking, that would be perfect.
Yeah, you could open a place with picnic tables and some beer taps and the stool, which they do have here. The stool, that is the worst stool in the world. They're the most uncomfortable things that exist. They didn't have food when they opened.
Right.
You could get away with that. Like, that was, nobody cared. Now people care.
Yeah. Because I feel like for a brewery, if you don't open with food, you're probably already behind a little bit.
Oh, yeah. You have to have some kind of food plan, be it a partner or someplace that's really close by that you trust that they're going to have the hours that you need them to have, or your own food program in-house.
Because you don't really see people bring food trucks in anymore.
They do. Some places still do. The one that seems to be really successful with it down here is Municipal over in Hamilton. For some reason, they seem to do a really good job of finding food trucks that they trust that'll show up, and they do show up, even if it's a night where it's not that busy, and it might not make the most sense for them to be there. They still show up for some reason.
Then when you see a brewery like this, because Mama Bear's was a food truck, right? Yeah. So you like that idea too? When you get a partner, hey, you're good, just take care of the food, and we take care of the beer. And
as long as you get the right partner, it's also, you're opening yourself up to. If you have the wrong partner, it's very easy for somebody to walk in, not understanding kind of what the arrangement is. And if I sit down and I have a bad meal, now that's reflecting on the business as a whole. Not that I'm getting on Yelp and writing reviews, but people do. Oh, yeah. And if they walk in and they're like, yeah, this was great, the space was great, the beer was great, but the food sucked and they were rude and it took too long. And it's like, well, that's not our fault. I can see that as being maybe an issue when you have a partner in-house.
Because I hate saying them, but it seemed like Listerman went through that a little bit with some of the stuff they put in.
Listerman struggled a little bit. Not in that way, I don't think, but struggling to find the right partner.
Yeah,
until they just kind of gave up and said, you know what, we're just going to do it ourselves. And there's been a few places like that, and we will see more places that are like that have had partners for a long time that they're like, you know what, this doesn't make sense for us anymore. We need to we want to have the control over that in the same way we do the beer experience.
Is that how Gilligan's Ray got started?
Sort of. Theirs was a little bit different. It was, from my understanding, the restaurant was kind of spearheading that project and brought them in as partners just for the beer. And then my assumption, which this is not based on anything, is that the restaurant was deciding to pull out of the space, and instead of just shutting it down and walking away, worked out a deal with Westside that Westside could then take over full ownership and kind of do their own thing. Which is my assumption.
But you always mention you like seeing more restaurants putting in a small tap room, and
I think there's a lot of room for it. There's a whole bunch of people drinking a whole bunch of beer at other places that don't make their own beer.
Right.
Let's fix that.
Yeah.
If you're having a beer, there's no reason it shouldn't be a locally produced beer.
Right. Because I just see like some other places that could probably use like a small system and stuff like that, especially small and local and stuff like that. Especially with how Ohio beer laws are, if you're struggling getting like a beer license, but you say, "Hey, I'm going to be a brewery," it's like automatic. Hey, you got one.
Yeah. They just pay the money.
Yep. I'm not saying it's free, but it's because I know some people that were waiting for a beer license, and sometimes depending what town you're in, it's going to take a minute because Ohio restricts how many, which I don't get that at all, but everyone's up to their own.
It's not as bad as it is some places. There's some states that are just ridiculous with it. I think New York is always one that I hear quoted as one of the worst places trying to get a liquor license anywhere. But we're lucky. We're really lucky that we live where we do, and we've got what is happening here happening.
Like the CBA, they had this from Minnesota, they had their deal in talking about weed, water, and stuff like that. But the crazy thing was that their beer laws are so like you can only take 1 6-pack home. That's your limit.
Yeah, there's a lot of states that have really goofy laws. There were some, I don't know if it still exists. I want to say like Mississippi or something, where if you went to a brewery, you couldn't buy a beer. You couldn't just go get a beer at the bar. You had to like take a tour. And if you took a tour, then you could have samples on the tour. It was just weird stuff like that. I know Utah was always really weird. They can brew whatever beer they want, but they can't serve over 6% or something on tap. They can still serve it in bottles, but it can't be on tap. There's no point in that.
Right.
It's just dumb.
Yeah.
I mean, even it wasn't that long ago that there was an ABV cap here in Ohio.
That's going on about 10 years ago, right?
Yeah, but it wasn't that long. No. There was lots of breweries that were they couldn't have made some of the beers that they do now.
Right.
We would not have been able to get Utopias here in Cincinnati. It's crazy.
Yeah. So going back to Bock a little bit, so how do you like how is it going so far with the new way they're doing it? Because I know it went from the Bock Fest house to the park. Now it's like Rheingeist has taken it over in some other places.
Yeah, it's not just Rheingeist. So there's this year there are 4 different Bock Fest halls technically. So if you go to Rheingeist or if you go to Northern Row, the Lager House or now Rosedale is added this year. You go there and there is a ton of Bock beer, close to all of them at each one of those spaces. So I don't know what that number is this year, but we'll say 20 different Bock beers that you can go to any one of those spaces and drink. And then they have, music and stuff and just, activities going on all day. There's like a pig roast at Rosedale. It'd be cool. And then on top of that, there's other partner bars all over the city that have anywhere from 1 to 5 or 6 different Bock beers on. I love it. The first Bock Fests that I remember going to, even if there was a Bock Fest hall, you didn't really hang out at Bock Fest Hall all day. The point, at least the way I took it at that time, was to get out and go to different places. You would, at that time, walk, because we didn't have a streetcar. There is no excuse this year, or in the last few years. You had to walk around town, had to walk through OTR. There was, once the Lager House opened up, there were years where we would walk all the way from OTR down to the banks and back just to drink Bock beer. But the idea was to go to different places, to spread the love through the neighborhood, because when Bock Fest was born, the neighborhood needed that support, and it was supposed to get you to different businesses. So I kind of like this return to some of that, where you're encouraged to not just sit in one spot all day. You go and get a beer at Rheingeist, then you walk over to Northern Row, grab a beer, then you hop on the streetcar and you go all the way down to Moorline, you grab a beer, and then you hop back on the streetcar and you shoot up to Arnold's and you have a beer. Then you get back on the streetcar and you shoot over to, and you hop around to different spots and to try, hopefully, places you haven't been. Give yourself some time to work off some of the Bock beer. Walking does help that.
Yeah. So, because Melatonin is also going to be part of it this too.
Yeah, they're part of it, but I think they're only going to have one beer on. They're going to have just their Bock. I don't think they're going to have a whole bunch on. Not that that's bad,
right?
But yeah, it just gives you an excuse to just stop there.
Yeah,
and
you have a perfect way of navigating Bock Fest, or are you still trying to figure that out?
No, I'm all over the place. I always start. For me, my Bock celebration starts on Friday. Go to the parade. After the parade, I usually don't hop around too much on Friday. I'll go to Bock Fest Hall and have a couple beers there, and then maybe one other spot if I'm feeling frisky. Then the next day, Saturday, is the big day. I'm there all day. Start in the morning with a tour with the Brewing Heritage Trail. Shout out to them. They do tours of the lagering tunnels under OTR every year, and I think it's the perfect way to start off a Bock Fest on Saturday. Do that, and then as soon as you finish, if you take one of the early tours, like at noon or so, you finish and it's like 1, you're ready for some sausage and some beer, and then just it's off to the races. Whatever, try to pay attention to the app. There's a really great Bock Fest app, and you can get on there and it'll tell you what's going on where and who's got what Bock and stuff. And you can check in at different locations, and just whatever strikes your fancy. You hear of a place that's serving some Bock beer, you'll run into people that you want to hang out with, and like, oh, where are you guys going? And like, oh, we're going to go over to Rosedale. Well, now that's where I'm going to, and then it just kind of keeps going from there. You just end up hopping around. And again, the streetcar makes it just so easy to go anywhere. Right. You don't have to have a perfectly mapped out route. Right.
So, who has the best Where's the best place to get a sausage at Bock Fest?
I don't know the answer to that this year. I don't know.
Because I know last year
it was a problem last year. There was not nearly enough sausage. Last year, the best spot was Northern Row. And that was where I ate my sausage last year. I don't know. There's a pig roast over at Rosedale. That is probably going to be pretty fun. But it's not sausage. It's probably just, big old pork sandwich or something.
Sounds good to me.
You just gotta go hunt down your own sausage.
Yep.
Unless you can find somebody walking down the street with a hot dog roller. I'm cooking them.
Have you thought about doing that?
There may be something in the works.
Awesome. You can make some money off of that too.
I don't think that's legal.
No. So do your family come with you too, or are you all
sometimes? Usually no. My kids cannot hang for an entire day, so it's usually me solo. Usually. They would be okay on a Sunday for a few hours or something, but
yeah, because I think my first time I went there was on a Sunday. I regretted it because in the festival sometimes things run out. So
yeah.
So I remembered, hey, to go on Saturdays and
even I think I don't know what day Arnold's does their blessing of the Bock. It's that week before Bock Fest. It's not on Friday. It's probably Wednesday or Thursday or something. And if you go to that, it's insane. It's packed, and it's shoulder to shoulder, which is kind of the way Arnold's always is sometimes on the weekends. But they have a bunch that they tap there. They have a whole lineup of Bock beer there, and I think that's a fun way to kind of kick things off before the actual festival if you want to try some fun Bock. there's always good stuff. There's always things that you've never had before, never heard of before, local or not. Just it's good.
So where do you think you're going to start this year? You don't know yet.
Definitely. I will definitely start it on Friday, starting with the parade. That'll be when I kick off my Friday night. And then I'm assuming I'll probably head to Rheingeister Northern Row after that. But beyond that, I don't know. you just play it by ear.
Yeah, right. Because
you let the chaos of Bock Fest carry you wherever it takes you.
Because it'll be probably done before this comes out. Tomorrow they do something at Northern Row.
Bock Fest Precipitation Retaliation. Is that tomorrow?
I think so.
That's tomorrow. So
it'll be done by the time this comes out.
Yeah, but it's a fun story. So this has been probably, I don't know, 10 years, probably more than that now at this point. There was a year where Bock Fest, the day of Bock Fest, there was a huge snowstorm, like a massive, incredible snowstorm. It shut down the entire city. Level 3 snow emergency. Don't leave your house unless it's an emergency kind of thing. So the parade's canceled, the festival's canceled, everything's canceled, and nobody cared. Everybody still went. Everybody that was, especially the people that are living, down in OTR or close by, they all just left their house and they walked and they went and they showed up outside Arnold's and they made their own parade and kept doing it. So ever since that year, the week or two leading up to Bock Fest, they have these precipitation retaliation parties at different places. It's been at Northern Row the last few years, and they build an effigy of a snowman, so like a big fake paper mache snowman, and they burn it as a way to ward off the winter spirits that'll create bad weather. And so far, it's worked. It's other than COVID, I guess they should have made like a virus effigy or something too. Yeah,
because that had been sad for a lot. Because was Bock Fest able to go before the year 2020, or did it just get off? Because I know they shut down St. Patty's weekend.
Yeah, Bock Fest was the last big event that happened before COVID that year. But 2021, the parade was canceled, and there was no actual Bock Fest. But again, everybody still made Bock beer. Everybody still, not everybody. There was still a parade that happened of people that were not obeying the rules. Right. It's so
crazy we lived this.
Has never stopped. Bock Fest has never not happened unofficially.
Right.
There's definitely been years where it was not officially going on, but Bock Fest, in the words of Jeff Goldblum, Bock Fest will find a way.
Then getting to another one, because Missing Link's coming up too, which that's going to be fun.
Yeah.
Too.
Oh, yeah. Missing Link takes a lot of the same spirit of Bock Fest and wraps it into something completely different. Definitely more about the beer itself and the kind of the science behind that than just the debauchery that Bock Fest is about.
But it's amazing because last year was my first time. I loved it, and I'm still trying to learn what that beer tastes like. Because for me,
everybody is,
because I still don't know what it is.
That's what makes it so fun. Is even the brewery themselves, there are still so many things that nobody's ever tried with the yeast, tried to do with it, that they're still learning new things about it. And Missing Link as a festival has enabled them to have lots of different people trying lots of different things, different styles and different techniques to see what the yeast actually does. They can do a lot of different things. It's what makes it fun.
Right. Then with the Oktoberfest, what it's become as well.
Last year was the best year that I've ever experienced Oktoberfest.
Was it because you met Jim Cook?
No, it was. That's always great, but especially Oktoberfest Cincinnati for a lot of years became a commercial mess of a festival, and it was in places that didn't make sense, and when they brought it down to the park this year, it was the perfect location. It felt better. It felt like an actual Volksfest instead of being just a random commercial festival in the middle of a city. Like, it felt good. So I'm looking forward to the whole lineup of festivals for 2025.
Do you already have your? When do you start planning on your bracket?
I will start planning the bracket when beers start getting released. So July.
So you didn't do a Bock one, huh?
No. I just stick to Oktoberfest. It consumes my life for.
But Bock doesn't really get canned that
3
much,
months of the year. A little bit. There's a few, not a ton. Not as many as Oktoberfest, but because Oktoberfest takes over so much of my life, I will never do another bracket like that. I might do smaller ones, but it's too much.
So if there was another beer style in Cincinnati that screams, oh, this could be a festival as well? Is there a certain one that you think?
Yeah, I mean, you could do like. I know that Sonder has done some events, and they've joked about sports beer and kind of the dark lager thing. I think that could be a festival, not the size of these other ones, but it could be. I think that this whole idea of like light coffee beers, like there is some kind of weird thing that is happening in Cincinnati and even just kind of Ohio as a whole about kind of light coffee blondes or coffee pilsners or coffee cream ales. Like that's not normal. The amount that we have, like there is a lot of them around. That could be like a festival. That could be something really fun if you bring coffee into it also and do some kind of thing with coffee and beer together. There's a lot of fun styles that could be some kind of a smaller festival, but
because I guess I don't really consider it, but when you go down to Dark Charge, I can kind of consider that another one, even though they don't talk about it, but the way they shut down the street and stuff like that. I
think that whole kind of season there from from Black Friday until early December, where we have a lot of those releases, I think kind of has become its own little stylistic holiday in itself. Big beer season.
And I didn't get to make it to this one, but I know Wandering Monsters going to plan on doing more of what they did this past week. I kind of want to keep an eye on that.
Yeah, I would have liked to be able to make it out to that. It looks pretty good.
And because the episode will be out before this comes out, but when I was talking to him about Jason on the last ideas he has, it was like, it excites me what they all got planned. Because
I think the idea isn't, for me, like, you don't have to recreate what Oktoberfest is. You don't have to latch onto a beer style. You got to find something else that makes a festival fun. If you're a place like Wandering Monsters, make it a barbecue and beer festival. Do both together. There's just lots of different ideas that you could do with a festival. You don't have to recreate the wheel, which is Oktoberfest.
So I know we had touched on. So what are some things in craft beer right now that in 2025 exciting you, and that I know we touch on what's worrying you, but is there anything else that really jumps out at you, like makes you mad?
Yeah, I mean, we'll start with what I'm excited about, because I'm excited about a lot. I'm excited that places are able to make beers that maybe they didn't think they were able to make before, be it lagers, or if you want to make some kind of weird off-the-wall style, like you can. I think we're now entering this period of time where, because there are so many breweries, you don't have to try to provide something for everybody in your space. Like, if you wanted to open a brewery that only did lager beer, you could, and nobody would blink an eye, and you could probably do okay with it.
There's one coming in Dayton. He hasn't gotten done with it yet, but there is one coming.
Yeah, I mean, Rebel Metal tried it, and because of some bad timing and all of that, it didn't work. But I don't think that was the idea that failed. I think that there is just a lot of room for people to have their own personality right now. On the flip side, I think it's depressing to see that there are a lot of people that do not have their own personality that try to be something for everybody. And when you do that, then you just end up kind of not doing anything well and not having anything that, speaks to you. So that's a little sad to see sometimes, that there are places that just aren't standing out properly. And, you know, the rise of people just not wanting to drink beer as much is depressing, but it'll come around.
Yeah. I mean, they all have jobs. They got to get stressed out and have to take it out on something, I would think.
Yeah, I guess.
Or I don't have kids yet, but for you to having kids, I'm sure it brings it out a little bit sometimes.
Yeah, I mean, you know, I don't look at beer drinking as a way to escape from the stuff around you. I really do look at beer as a piece of all of that. You know, beer is kind of the soundtrack to different parts of my life. You know, like if it's a weekend and it's 60 degrees outside and we're sitting outside in the yard, I've got a beer in my hand while my kids are playing. You know, if we're taking a walk around the block, there's a beer in my hand. If we're out having dinner or having dinner at home or something, there's a beer sitting in front of me. Like it is a background to all the other stuff that's going on. It shouldn't be an escape from it.
Right. So if someone came up to you that was about to start a brewery and say, "What do I need to open a brewery today?" What would
money? A lot of money. You also need to know who you are. You need to know who you are and who your customers are, and how those two things are going to find a place in the middle to meet. I think a lot of people can make great beer and kind of forget that beer still has to speak to people in a different way than just being good beer.
Right. Because what does craft mean to you right now?
That's a good question. Craft to me is an attention to something that is deeper than the product itself. Mm-hmm. I think is how I would word it without putting a lot of thought into it. You know, the process, the ingredients, the history, the soul of something. Paying attention to that is craft. I had a discussion one time with Brett and Mike from Bruce Guys. We were talking about craft and the death of craft, or the impending death of craft, and as we're in the middle of this conversation, I started really thinking about some of like the least craft companies that I can think of, and McDonald's was an easy one to kind of pick. And in my head, as I was starting to kind of play it out, I realized for me, it's not that a McDonald's cheeseburger itself isn't craft. Like, there is craft to that. Mm-hmm. Even if the craft is just the process behind it and trying to make things faster and trying to make things cheaper. That in itself is some kind of a craft if you're paying attention to the process. So there's a lot of craft in a lot of things that maybe we don't give credit for there being.
Yeah.
It's not a craft cheeseburger, but there is craft in making that cheeseburger.
Do you think sometimes breweries forget what that means?
Yeah, I think everybody does. Mm-hmm. Not just breweries. I think we all do. Mm-hmm. Like, you know, when you go home at night and you're, you know, washing dishes and you're cutting corners on how you're doing it and you're not really paying attention to it, like, you forgot the craft of doing that. When you're out there mowing your grass in the middle of summer and you're sweating your butt off and you're just trying to get it done, you've forgotten the craft of mowing the grass. Right. You know, it's little things in everyday life, and it's easy in something where you're producing something as basic in a lot of ways as beer, to lose the craft of that.
Right.
It's clearly easy to lose that in making cheeseburgers.
Right. Yeah, because I still we always joke about having a time machine go and taste breweries back in the day. I would love to have a time machine.
Yes.
See what the original McDonald's actually tastes like compared to now.
Yes, I think beer is not one that you want to. Mm-hmm. I don't think beer has tasted better than it does today. Mm-hmm. I think the beer we're getting is the best beer that has ever been made.
I mean, there's still some breweries I wish I had the chance to try. But
sure,
yeah.
that's different. That's a different argument. Yeah. But I think beer as a whole is better now than it's ever been.
Right.
It's one of the few products out there that you can say that about. You know, most things have just progressively gotten worse over time.
Right.
I don't think beer has. But there's a lot more of it. And in the middle of that, there are a lot of mediocre, crappy beers. But as a whole, the best beer is better than it's ever been.
Where do you see Cincinnati if you had a time machine in 20 years? Where do you see us?
Hopefully a lot more smaller breweries, a lot of neighborhood spots. We still need small tap rooms in lots of little places around town. And hopefully people will find ways to make that work for them, to make a successful business out of it so they can make it last. You see all these little neighborhood bars that have been around for decades, and I was like, yeah, this is where my dad drank, this is where my grandpa drank, and they have figured out a way to make that last over generations. If you can do that, we should be able to figure it out for breweries, and that's what we need. There's lots of those places.
So what are some, if someone was going to Bock Fest for the first time, what should you tell them to expect and do?
Expect to use Uber or Lyft at the beginning and the end of the night, because you will drink a lot of beer. But your Bock Fest experience is going to be very different than somebody else's, because it is such a unique festival. And depending on where your night takes you around town, your Bock Fest is going to look different. But yeah, expect a whole bunch of beer, tons of beer. Expect to see lots of costumes and people dressed like weird stuff. You'll see monks next to people dressed as goats, next to people dressed as some kind of sausage fairy.
Are you the sausage fairy?
Sometimes I am the sausage fairy. But just be ready to drink a bunch of beer. Like that's what it's about.
Well, I thank you for coming on and
Thanks
talking
for having
to me,
me.
and I always enjoy having you come on.
Oh, it's always fun. And thank you to Grainworks for
Yes.
hosting.
Yes. Even though they weren't
Unbeknownst to
expecting
them.
this. But no, it's been fun, and I thank you, buddy.
Yeah, thank you.
Cheers.
Cheers.